Rancher paid 12 cents for a cabin, only to discover a giant Apache girl inside. An astonishing revelation. So when the town clerk slid a yellowed paper across the counter and said, 12 cents, John laughed out loud. Ain't funny, John said, adjusting his dusty hat. What kind of joke is that? The clerk, a thin man with tired eyes, shrugged. No joke. Old cabin on the North Ridge. No one wants it. Owner disappeared years ago. Town just wants it off the books. John frowned. Land never sold for 12 cents. Not even broken land. Not even cursed land, if such a thing existed. He leaned closer. Why doesn't anyone want it? The clerk hesitated. People say it's strange. John had heard that word many times before. Strange usually meant wind noises, loose boards, or lonely places where the mind played tricks. None of that scared him. He scratched his beard, thought of his small ranch struggling through another dry season, and finally nodded. I'll take it. The clerk looked relieved, stamped the paper, and slid a copper coin into a small wooden box. It's yours now. John walked out of town feeling like he had just made the strangest deal of his life. The cabin sat high on a rocky ridge overlooking endless plains. By the time John reached it, the sun was low and the sky burned orange and red. The cabin looked old but not broken. The wood was dark, almost black, as if aged by more than just time. No windows were broken. The door stood straight. John's horse snorted and refused to move closer. That's a first, John muttered. He dismounted and tied the horse to a tree. As he walked toward the cabin, the air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to happen. The ground beneath his boots felt solid, but something about the silence made his skin prickle. John reached the door and pushed. It opened easily. Inside, the cabin was larger than it looked from outside. The ceiling was higher, the walls wider. A fireplace sat cold in the corner. Dust covered most surfaces, but the floor near the back was clean, as if someone had walked there recently. John stepped inside and froze. The floor creaked, not under his weight, but deeper, slower. He felt it through his boots, like something shifting beneath the boards. "Hello," he called. No answer. He moved further in, hand resting near the handle of his revolver. His heart beat louder with every step. Near the back of the cabin stood a large shape covered by a thick woven blanket. It was far too big to be furniture. The shape moved. John stopped breathing. The blanket slipped slightly and he saw skin, brown, smooth, and unmistakably human. "This is John McAllister," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice calm. "I don't want trouble." The blanket fell away. What stood before him was a girl, or a young woman, taller than any man John had ever seen. Her head nearly touched the ceiling. Her long black hair fell down her back like a curtain. She wore simple clothing, handmade, strong, and practical. Her eyes were dark, sharp, and alert. She did not look angry. She looked afraid. They stared at each other in silence. John's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. His hands trembled, but he did not draw his weapon. "You're very tall," he said finally. The giant girl blinked. "And you are very small," she replied. Her voice was calm, deep, and clear. John let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. Fair enough. The girl slowly sat down on the floor, careful not to damage the cabin. Even seated, she was taller than John standing. "My name is Kaya," she said. "I did not mean to frighten you." "Well," John replied, "you succeeded anyway." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You are not running." "I ran once," John said. "Didn't solve much." That seemed to interest her. She explained that she had been hiding there for a long time. How long, she did not say. She spoke carefully, choosing each word as if it mattered greatly. "This place was abandoned," Kaya said. "I believed it was safe." John nodded slowly. "It was, until today, I suppose." He glanced around the cabin. "I bought this place, didn't expect company." Kaya lowered her eyes. "I will leave if you wish." The way she said it made John pause. Despite her size, she looked young, lost, tired. "Where would you go?" he asked. She hesitated. "Far, where they cannot find me." "Who's they?" Kaya's jaw tightened. Those who hunt what they do not understand. That answer sent a chill through John's spine. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the cabin grew colder. John noticed Kaya watching the door every few moments, listening to sounds he could not hear. "You hungry?" John asked. She looked surprised. "You offer food. Seems polite," he said. "You're in my cabin." After a moment she nodded. John shared what little he had: dried meat, bread, and water. Kaya ate carefully, as if unused to sharing space with someone else. She thanked him after every bite. "You're not from around here," John said. "No," she replied, "but my people have walked this land longer than you know." She spoke of Apache stories, of strength passed down through generations, of watching the stars for signs not all humans could see. She did not speak of how she grew so large, only that it was part of her people's burden and their gift. John listened quietly. "You don't seem dangerous," he said at last. Kaya smiled faintly. "Neither do you." That night John slept near the fire, his revolver within reach. Kaya remained awake, standing guard near the door. Outside, something moved in the distance, faint lights in the sky, silent and watching. Kaya saw them, and she knew her hiding place had finally been found. The next morning, the cabin seemed smaller in the daylight, though the shadows still clung to the corners. John woke to the smell of wood smoke and fresh air drifting through the open window. Kaya was already awake, sitting by the fire, her enormous hands wrapped around a small mug of water. She watched him with eyes that seemed too old and too young at the same time, curious, cautious, and aware of every sound. "You sleep well?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying a subtle authority. John stretched and rubbed the back of his neck. "Better than I thought I would, considering, you know." He gestured vaguely to her immense form occupying the back of the cabin. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you in a place like this." Kaya smiled faintly, the corner of her lips barely lifting. "And I never thought I'd find someone kind enough to share his space without fear." John grinned. "Kind enough or stubborn enough?" She considered his words, then tilted her head. "Perhaps both." Breakfast was quiet. John offered dried meat and bread, which Kaya ate slowly. She seemed to observe everything: the way John handled the food, the way he moved around the cabin, even the way he occasionally glanced at her. She was not just tall. There was something almost otherworldly about her presence. John felt it in the quiet moments, like she carried more than human strength within her. Finally, he asked, "So, why hide here? Not many people live out this far. Why not somewhere less noticeable?" Kaya's gaze shifted to the distant hills visible through the cabin window. "Because the world outside can be dangerous. I am not like other humans. If they find me, they will take me for experiments. I do not belong to them." John frowned. "Experiments? Who would and why?" She hesitated, then spoke with measured words. "There are those who seek the unusual, the extraordinary. They watch, they follow. They do not understand what they hunt." John's mind raced. In all his years on the frontier, he had faced rattlesnakes, coyotes, even bandits, but this was something else. He nodded slowly. "I don't like it, but I get it. You need protection." Kaya's eyes softened. "And you offer it willingly?" John shrugged. "I may be stubborn, but I know when someone deserves help. Besides," he looked at her carefully, "you're human, Kaya. That counts for something." For the next hour, John showed her the cabin, opening cupboards, dusting shelves, and pointing out places where she could move safely without breaking anything. It was a strange collaboration, the giant woman crouching or leaning gently, adjusting her long limbs to fit the small space. She moved with care, showing patience and intelligence that amazed John. "I have been hiding for a long time," Kaya said finally. "I learned to move quietly to avoid detection. My people, we are not always accepted. Some fear what we are, others wish to use us. I wanted none of that." John nodded, understanding the weight of isolation. "I know what it is to be alone. Life here isn't easy, but it's ours. We do what we can, survive, and try to live right." Kaya looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You have courage, John McAllister, not the blind kind, the quiet, steady kind." John laughed softly, scratching his beard. I'm no hero. Just a rancher who stubbornly refuses to give up. Kaya studied him, her enormous eyes seeming to look right through him. Sometimes that is enough. The sun rose higher, and with it came a small routine. John showed Kaya how to handle a horse, though at first she struggled with her size. The horse, a patient gray mare named Leela, eyed her suspiciously but allowed her to gently stroke its neck. Kaya's large hands moved slowly and deliberately, careful not to frighten the animal. John watched, amazed at how she adapted. You're a quick learner, he said. I must be, she replied. Survival depends on it. As the day wore on, John took Kaya to the ridge overlooking the plains. From there she could see for miles, rolling hills, distant rivers, and the occasional glint of a traveling wagon. She seemed fascinated, not by the view itself, but by how humans had tamed it. Your people have endured here, she said. You have strength even without unusual gifts. John felt a flush of pride. Humans adapt, he said simply. We don't give up, that's our gift. Kaya nodded. It is rare to meet someone who understands that. Others only see what is different, not what is shared. They stood together in silence for a while, the wind rustling Kaya's hair and carrying the scent of wild grass. Then she turned toward him, serious. I must tell you something. My size, my abilities, they are not just for hiding. They are for survival. And soon survival may become very difficult. John frowned. What do you mean? They will come for me, Kaya said. The Watchers, they do not rest. They track those like me. If they find me here, you may be in danger too. John's jaw tightened. He had faced storms, wild animals, and even bandits, but this threat felt different, unseen, relentless, and far beyond his understanding. Then we prepare, he said simply. If they come, they'll find two stubborn humans, not one. Kaya's lips curved into a small smile. I like your determination. That night, John and Kaya worked quietly in the cabin. John reinforced the windows and doors, setting simple but clever traps with rope and wood, nothing lethal, only enough to slow an intruder. Kaya moved silently around the cabin, testing her own strength, her long arms bending and flexing in ways John had never seen. She lifted furniture effortlessly and rearranged it to create obstacles that would confuse anyone unfamiliar with the space. You are impressive, John said, watching her. I must be, Kaya replied calmly. Even the simplest tasks must be done efficiently. There is no room for waste. They shared a simple dinner and then sat by the fire. Kaya leaned against the wall, her enormous head near the ceiling, and spoke softly. I have not trusted anyone in a long time, she admitted, but I feel safe here, with you. John felt a strange warmth in his chest. Despite her size and otherworldly presence, she seemed human in her needs, trust, safety, companionship. Then we'll keep it that way, he said. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere far above, lights flickered across the sky, too distant to reach the ridge, but close enough to remind Kaya of the danger waiting. She shivered slightly, not from cold but from anticipation. You must rest, John said. You need your strength. I will watch, Kaya replied. I have learned to be cautious. John chuckled softly. Then we are both on watch. They fell into an uneasy silence, the fire crackling between them. John's thoughts wandered to his ranch, to the hard work ahead, and to the strange twist of fate that had brought this giant girl into his life. He had expected a broken cabin. He had expected dust, creaking boards, and perhaps some wildlife. Instead, he found something extraordinary. The night deepened. The wind outside grew louder, carrying faint, unrecognizable sounds. Kaya's eyes followed every shadow, every movement, every whisper of sound. John realized then that he was not the only one learning. He was being watched as much as she was, and he would have to be ready. As dawn approached, Kaya spoke again softly. They are coming sooner than I expected. John frowned. Then we need to be ready. Whatever it takes, we'll face it together. Kaya nodded. Together. And in that quiet cabin on the ridge, with the wind howling outside and the plains stretching endlessly before them. An unlikely partnership began. Two humans, bound not by similarity, but by the courage to survive against threats unseen, and the understanding that some gifts, whether size, skill, or stubbornness, were meant to be used to protect, not to fear. The morning sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light across the plains. John McAllister stepped outside the cabin and took a deep breath of crisp, cold air. Everything seemed peaceful, almost ordinary, yet his mind could not shake the feeling that something was coming, something beyond the usual dangers of the frontier. Kaya remained inside, moving with a quiet grace despite her enormous size. She crouched near the fireplace, examining a small collection of tools John had left on a table. Her hands, so large and powerful, handled delicate objects as if they were as fragile as glass. John watched from the doorway, impressed. Her movements were precise, intelligent, and careful, a mix of human ingenuity and strength far beyond any ordinary person. "You're awake early," John said, stepping inside. Kaya looked up. "I could not sleep. There are signs. Small things in the wind, patterns in the shadows. They tell me someone is near," John frowned. "Someone, you mean the Watchers," she nodded. "Yes, they are coming closer, faster than I expected." John swallowed hard. He had never seen her like this before, alert, tense, yet calm. It was unsettling. "What can we do?" he asked. Kaya stood slowly, towering over him. "We prepare, not to fight them with weapons, but to survive. Humans are clever, John. We do not need power to outsmart strength." John felt a mix of pride and unease. Cleverness had always been a human trait he valued, but now it seemed like it would be tested in ways he had never imagined. The day passed quietly, with John teaching Kaya about the land around the cabin. She observed everything: the way the soil held moisture, the paths animals took, even the direction of the wind. She asked questions that surprised John, not about survival alone, but about human ingenuity. "Why do you build fences this way?" she asked, pointing to a crude barrier around his small ranch. "Why not create one that guides animals instead of blocking them?" John laughed. "Because sometimes simple works best. You don't always need cleverness if strength and patience do the job." Kaya nodded, but John saw a spark in her eyes, a desire to improve, to combine cleverness with strength. Later, John returned with Leela the horse, while Kaya stayed near the cabin. She studied the land from the ridge, her enormous eyes scanning every detail. John noticed her hands flexing, her muscles moving as she silently practiced balance and agility. She could have moved like a giant without care, yet she was deliberate, cautious, and graceful. It was clear she was more than human in capability, but her mind remained keen, calculating, and kind. "You move like the wind," John said. "Silent, careful, but strong." Kaya smiled faintly. "I must. Survival is not just strength, it is awareness, anticipation, balance, and sometimes patience." John felt a thrill of respect for her. Humans had endured harsh lands, storms, and wild animals for generations, but Kaya carried that knowledge within her body in ways he had never imagined. As the sun dipped toward evening, the first signs of danger appeared. Strange lights flickered in the sky far off, but moving too fast to be birds or ordinary lanterns. Kaya's eyes narrowed. "They are here," she whispered. John followed her gaze. "Who? What are they?" "Observers. They watch humans like me. They are not from this world." John's stomach tightened. "Aliens?" Kaya nodded. "Not all are cruel, but some are hunters. They take what they do not understand. They want abilities like mine, and they will not stop until they have them." John's mind raced. He had faced bandits and storms, but nothing like this. "Then we defend," he said simply. "But how?" Kaya's expression grew serious. "We use what we have: intelligence, environment, and courage. Humans survive when they must. I can help. But you must trust your instincts. That is what makes you special." John felt a strange pride. Somehow, being human mattered more than any physical power. and if he could think, adapt, and act, he might protect more than just himself. The night grew darker, and the cabin became a small fortress. John and Kaya worked together, using rope, wood, and natural materials to create clever barriers. Kaya moved with a careful strength, lifting large logs to block pathways without damaging the ground too much. John set traps and alarms, strings stretched across the path, small tin cans that would rattle when touched. Simple ideas but effective if combined with intelligence and observation. "You are inventive," Kaya said, watching John work. "Not many humans can do this without hesitation." John smiled. "I've had to think on my feet. The land doesn't wait for slow minds." Kaya nodded, her eyes reflecting both approval and something deeper, a hint of admiration. By midnight, the cabin was ready. They were not armed in the traditional sense, but the environment itself would work for them. Rocks could be rolled, paths could be blocked, and their knowledge of the land gave them a huge advantage. "They will test us soon," Kaya whispered. "They always do." John gritted his teeth. "Then we'll show them humans are not easy prey." Hours later, a faint sound reached their ears, a low hum, almost mechanical but too quiet to place. Kaya crouched near the window, moving silently despite her size. She peered out into the night and John followed, his heart pounding. A faint glow moved across the plains. Not natural light, not fire, something else. Shapes, too vague to recognize fully, but the feeling was unmistakable. They were approaching. "They scout first," Kaya said. "They test, they measure. They do not attack immediately." John's hand hovered near the rope traps, his mind racing. He had no idea what these watchers were, but he trusted Kaya's instincts. She had survived hiding from them before. "They won't expect cleverness," she whispered. "They rely on power, on size. They do not understand human thinking." John felt a thrill of confidence. This was his strength, his mind, his knowledge of land, and his stubbornness. Together, they could face even the unknown. The lights came closer, flickering across the ridge like restless stars. John could feel the tension building in the air. Kaya's body moved almost without sound, adjusting the logs and ropes, preparing for what might come. "Remember," she said softly, "use what is around you. Be patient. Watch, wait, and act only when the moment is right." John nodded, gripping a sturdy stick for balance and support. He felt the weight of responsibility, not just for himself, but for Kaya, for his land, for everything human that survived here by courage, wit, and resilience. The strange lights paused for a moment, then moved in an unpredictable pattern, testing, observing, calculating. John's traps would alert them, and Kaya's awareness would guide their reactions. They were not strong like the Watchers, but their strength lay in strategy, thought, and human adaptability. Hours passed, and the Watchers moved cautiously, never fully revealing themselves. Kaya whispered observations to John, pointing out patterns in the light and shadow. They adjusted their positions, used the terrain, and created obstacles that would confuse anyone who did not know the land intimately. John marveled at her understanding, how she combined human intuition with her extraordinary abilities. She was more than giant. She was a bridge between human cleverness and survival instinct amplified. "They will try to take me," Kaya said finally. "But you may change the outcome." John felt a surge of determination. "Then we will change it together." And as the first pale light of dawn crept over the plains, they stood side by side, human and giant, ordinary and extraordinary, ready to face whatever the Watchers had planned. The frontier had always tested humans, and now it would test them like never before. But John realized something that filled him with quiet pride. Even in the face of unknown power, humans had one advantage that nothing could replace: the ability to think, adapt, and never give up. Kaya nodded to him, her enormous eyes calm but fierce. "We begin now," she whispered. John swallowed, feeling a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "Then let's begin." The day broke slowly over the plains, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. John McAllister stood outside the cabin, scanning the horizon. The watcher lights from last night had disappeared with the dawn, but John knew they would return. The wind carried a strange electric hum, almost too faint to hear, but enough to make his skin tingle. Kaya emerged from the cabin, her enormous frame stretching tall as she surveyed the land. Her eyes, sharp and observant, caught every detail: the swaying grass, the shadows behind rocks, and even small cracks in the ground that could reveal movement. "They are near," she said softly, "closer than I expected. They have learned the ridge is inhabited." John nodded, gripping a sturdy stick like a weapon. "Then we wait, and we make them pay for every step." Kaya's lips curved into a faint smile. "Clever, John. Humans do not rely on raw power alone. That is why you survive." John laughed lightly, though his stomach churned. The Watchers were fast, unknown, and untested, but he knew one thing: they did not know human cunning. That would be their advantage. By midday, the sky began to shimmer strangely. Distant lights appeared over the plains, small, faint, and irregular. Kaya crouched near the cabin, her massive hands brushing the grass as she scanned for movement. "They scout first," she whispered. "They will not attack openly until they understand the terrain." John adjusted the traps he had set the night before: strings tied to tin cans, logs arranged to topple, loose stones stacked to roll down slopes. Simple, human solutions, but effective if timed correctly. "They are clever," Kaya said, watching the lights, "but they underestimate patience. Observation is a human skill they do not value." John smiled. "Then we have the advantage already." The lights flickered closer, revealing more structure: low, floating shapes that shifted in ways unnatural to the human eye. They moved silently, gliding above the ground, scanning the ridge as though analyzing everything in seconds. John felt a shiver run down his spine, but Kaya remained calm, her large hands resting on her knees as she observed them. "They are not cruel," she said softly. "Not all of them, but some are hunters. They test first, strike later. And when they strike, they take what they want without hesitation." John's jaw tightened. "Then we make them hesitate." As evening approached, the Watchers began probing closer. One of them hovered near a rock outcrop, its shape glowing faintly, scanning with beams of light that seemed to penetrate the ground itself. John crouched behind a boulder with Kaya beside him. "They will find our traps," Kaya said, "but we must make them unpredictable. Move slowly, act deliberately, and they will waste effort." John nodded. He remembered what Kaya had taught him. Survival was not about brute force. It was about thought, timing, and adaptation. The first interaction came suddenly. A small Watcher descended near the edge of the ridge, its glowing eyes scanning. John held his breath, waiting for Kaya's signal. She placed a massive hand gently on his shoulder. "Now," she whispered. John pulled a rope, sending a tin can rolling across the ground. The Watcher's lights flared, spinning to follow the sound. Kaya moved silently, lifting a large log with ease and letting it roll toward the Watcher. The combination of sound and movement caused it to hesitate, recalculating its approach. John grinned. "See, cleverness wins." Kaya smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we think, not all rely on strength." The Watcher moved back, regrouping with others in the distance. They were analyzing, learning, but so were John and Kaya. Every action became a test, every reaction a chance to adapt. Night fell and the ridge became a battlefield of shadows. The Watchers advanced cautiously, sending probing lights across the plain, trying to detect movement. John and Kaya had moved logs, stones, and ropes into new positions, creating a maze that would confuse and slow any intruder. "They will try again," Kaya said, "and they will expect us to react the same way." John nodded. "Then we won't." They don't know humans think differently each time. The Watchers descended again. This time they came in greater numbers, lights scanning, shadows moving like ghosts across the ridge. Kaya moved with astonishing speed, her massive frame bending low to avoid detection, yet placing obstacles in their path with precise force. She picked up a large boulder, set it in a path to roll at the right moment, and then ducked behind another rock, all without making a sound. John watched in awe. "You're amazing," he whispered. Kaya glanced at him. "I have trained my body for survival. But it is your mind, John, that makes this possible. You see what they do not. You anticipate." And she was right. John had noticed patterns in the Watchers' movements, the way they paused when lights flickered, how they circled certain areas before moving forward. Using these observations, he set small traps, adjusted obstacles, and even created decoy paths to mislead them. By midnight, the Watchers had lost patience. One of the larger shapes descended directly toward the cabin, its glowing eyes scanning aggressively. John felt his heart race. "They expect fear," Kaya said softly. "Do not give it to them." John squared his shoulders. "I won't." The final encounter began with a flash of light and a low hum. The Watcher's form hovered near the cabin, analyzing, testing, and probing. John and Kaya waited. The cabin's traps were set, but the real weapon was human ingenuity and trust in each other. Kaya moved silently, lifting logs and rearranging obstacles to create a confusing path. John adjusted strings and tin cans, timing each sound to mislead the Watcher. The lights shifted, following the disturbances, but every trap delayed, slowed, and confused it. "Now," Kaya whispered, and with one massive step she shifted a boulder into the path of the Watcher. It tripped slightly, spinning off balance. John yanked a rope, sending tin cans clanging behind it. The Watcher paused, recalculated, and moved again, but too slowly. They had bought themselves time. Time was human strength. Observation and patience were their weapons, and they had used them well. By dawn, the Watchers had retreated, hovering just beyond the ridge, unsure and cautious. They were learning, adapting, but so were John and Kaya. Kaya lowered herself near the cabin, exhausted but calm. "You see, they rely on technology and power. We rely on thought. And thought can outmatch almost anything." John smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "I always knew humans had an advantage, but seeing it, it's different." Kaya nodded. "You understand now why I trusted you. Strength without strategy is meaningless. Intelligence without courage is useless. You have both." John felt a warmth in his chest, pride, relief, and a deep respect for the giant woman beside him. She was not just powerful, she was wise, patient, and completely human in ways that mattered most. They spent the rest of the morning repairing the cabin and reinforcing their traps. Every stone, rope, and obstacle had a purpose. Every movement carefully calculated. They worked as a team, a perfect blend of human determination and extraordinary skill. Outside, the Watchers lingered, observing, learning, and waiting. John and Kaya did not fear them. They understood that survival depended on adaptation, intelligence, and courage. And together, they had all three. By noon, the ridge seemed calm again. The plain stretched endlessly, beautiful and serene. But John and Kaya knew better. The Watchers would return, stronger, more calculated. And when they did, the humans on the ridge would be ready. John looked at Kaya, her massive frame crouched near the cabin, hands resting on her knees, eyes scanning the horizon. "We did well," he said quietly. "We survived," Kaya replied. "And surviving is the first step to victory." John nodded. "Then we wait, watch, and prepare. Whatever comes next, we face it together." And as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the ridge, John realized something profound. Humans could survive anything: storms, wild animals, even beings from beyond the stars, because courage, intelligence, and stubbornness were qualities no Watcher could fully understand or predict. Kaya glanced at him and smiled faintly. "The Watchers will not understand this," she said. "But that is why humans endure. That is why we survive." John grinned, feeling the truth of her words in his bones. Together, they had turned the ridge into a fortress of cleverness, courage, and determination. and together they would face whatever challenges the universe could send. The Watchers would return, but so would human ingenuity. And that John knew was a power no one, no matter how advanced, could fully conquer. The first rays of sunlight stretched over the ridge, casting long shadows across the plains. John McAllister stood outside the cabin, his eyes scanning the horizon. After days of preparation, of careful observation and endless waiting, the Watchers were finally returning. This time their approach was different, deliberate, focused, and faster than before. Kaya crouched behind a boulder near the cabin, her massive form barely contained by the small space she occupied. She had spent the night practicing her movements, testing her strength, and observing patterns in the Watcher lights. Every motion was precise, every plan deliberate. She was ready. "They have learned," she said softly. "They will try to anticipate us, but humans are unpredictable. That is our advantage." John nodded, gripping a sturdy branch he had shaped into a makeshift staff. "Then let's show them what humans can do." The first Watcher descended, glowing softly, its light scanning the ridge. John held his breath as Kaya whispered instructions. "Wait, observe. When it moves, create confusion." John flicked a small tin can across the ground, the sound clattering and echoing off rocks. The Watcher paused, redirecting its light. Kaya lifted a large log with ease, placing it in the path of the glowing form. The Watcher hesitated, uncertain, scanning again. "They are testing," Kaya said. "They will probe every trap. Stay calm." John nodded. His heart pounded, but he stayed steady. Every sound, every movement was intentional. He had learned from Kaya's teachings. Patience, observation, and cleverness were more powerful than fear. The Watchers moved closer, more numerous now. They descended in formation, scanning and probing. One larger shape hovered near the cabin, its glowing eyes bright, analyzing every obstacle. John and Kaya worked as one. Kaya shifted massive boulders to block paths, redirected logs to create obstacles, and even used her size to cast large shadows, confusing the Watchers' sensors. John adjusted his smaller traps, sending tin cans clanging, creating noise and movement to mislead them. Every step was a battle of wits. The Watchers had advanced technology, but humans had ingenuity. "They do not expect this," Kaya whispered. "Every action you take forces them to adapt. Humans survive because we can change." John felt pride swelling in his chest. It was true. They were not strong in the traditional sense, but every clever trap, every calculated move, every adjustment to the terrain gave them an edge. Suddenly, one Watcher hovered too close, scanning directly at Kaya. She tensed but did not panic. Instead, she stepped forward, her massive hand lifting a log and letting it roll precisely in its path. The Watcher reacted too late, staggering as it tried to recalculate its movement. John leaped from behind his boulder, pulling a rope taut, triggering a small series of tin cans that clattered across the ground. The sound disoriented the Watcher further. Kaya smiled faintly. "Now, John." Using the moment, John directed a final trap, a small net he had fashioned from rope, weighted with stones. He cast it toward the Watcher, and it tangled slightly in the glowing form. It struggled, confused by the unexpected resistance. "They underestimate humans," Kaya said, her voice calm but firm. "We adapt, we survive." The Watchers regrouped, hovering just beyond the ridge. They had learned some of the tricks, but now it was the humans' turn to adapt. Kaya instructed John to move stones and logs into new positions, creating pathways that were intentionally misleading. She used her size and strength to block certain paths, making the Watchers hesitate. John followed her instructions, moving quickly but carefully. Each action was calculated, each sound timed. The Watchers tried to anticipate, but every movement forced them to pause, recalibrate, and waste energy. Human ingenuity was a puzzle they could not solve. "They will retreat if we remain clever," Kaya said. "We must continue." "Never give them certainty," John nodded. Together, they became a team of observation, timing, and strategy, human and giant working seamlessly to outwit a foe far more advanced. Hours passed. The watchers grew frustrated, their glowing forms hovering uncertainly, scanning and scanning but achieving nothing. John and Kaya had created a maze of obstacles, sound, and shadows that made the ridge almost impossible to navigate. Every time a watcher attempted a new approach, it was met with another clever trap or unexpected obstacle. They learn slowly, Kaya observed, but humans adapt faster. They do not anticipate courage combined with intelligence. John grinned, feeling a thrill unlike anything he had experienced before. The watchers might be more advanced, but they lacked something essential: human ingenuity, unpredictability, and stubborn determination. "They are leaving," Kaya said quietly, observing the glowing forms slowly retreating toward the plains. "For now." John exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. "We did it." Kaya smiled, though her eyes remained sharp. "We survived." And surviving is the first step toward victory. The next morning, the ridge was calm. The plains stretched endlessly, bathed in soft sunlight. John and Kaya stepped outside the cabin together, surveying their territory. The watchers were gone, at least for now, and the land seemed peaceful. John looked at Kaya, her massive frame silhouetted against the rising sun. "I never imagined this," he said softly. "A giant woman, a cabin on a ridge, and we defeating beings from the stars." Kaya chuckled quietly. "The world is full of surprises, but humans endure because we think, we adapt, and we never give up." John nodded, realizing the truth in her words. His stubbornness, patience, and quick thinking had mattered as much as Kaya's extraordinary abilities. Together, they had survived something unimaginable. Over the next few days, John and Kaya strengthened the cabin and the surrounding land. They built new obstacles, reinforced old ones, and established systems of warning signals. Kaya taught John to observe patterns in the wind, the stars, and even subtle vibrations in the ground, skills that would help them detect any approach. "They will return," Kaya said one evening as the sun set. "But we will be ready. Humans survive because we learn, we adapt. And we do not surrender." John smiled. "Then we keep learning together." Word of their success spread subtly among local travelers. Strange lights on the ridge, unexplainable obstacles, and rumors of a giant woman guarding the land became stories told quietly in towns. But John and Kaya did not care for fame. They cared for survival, for courage, and for the quiet pride that came from facing impossible odds and succeeding. As the weeks passed, their partnership deepened. John realized Kaya was more than strength. She was wisdom, patience, and courage embodied. And Kaya realized that human ingenuity, even in an ordinary rancher, was a power unmatched by technology or brute force. The cabin on the ridge became a symbol, not of fear, but of hope. A reminder that humans, ordinary in appearance, extraordinary in thought, could endure even in the face of unknown and seemingly impossible challenges. One morning, as the sun rose in brilliant gold and pink, Kaya and John stood together at the edge of the ridge. The plains stretched endlessly before them, peaceful and beautiful. "Do you think they will come back?" John asked. Kaya glanced at the horizon. "Perhaps, but humans endure, we adapt. And together there is nothing we cannot face." John nodded. "Then we stay ready. And we protect this land together." Kaya smiled, the corners of her enormous mouth lifting faintly. "Yes, together." For the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves a moment of peace. The watchers were gone, the ridge was secure, and the plain stretched endlessly with possibilities. But both knew that challenges would come again. That was the nature of life. What mattered was how humans responded, and here on this ridge, humans had shown their greatest strength: courage, intelligence, and the refusal to give up. Days later, as John tended to the ranch and Kaya moved gently through the fields, they both knew the ridge was more than a home. It was a proving ground, a place where human ingenuity met extraordinary ability, and where courage could turn the impossible into reality. The Watchers might return, but the humans on the ridge were ready. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and beings far beyond their world and survived. More than survived, they had triumphed. And as the sun set, casting long shadows over the plains, John and Kaya stood side by side, human and giant, ordinary and extraordinary, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. For in the end, it was not size, strength, or technology that mattered most. It was courage, intelligence, and the unyielding human spirit. And on that ridge, against all odds, humanity had won.